Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much for that intro. Hi, all. I am Stacey, the Black Feather Intuitive. So excited to be doing this Phoenix Revolution Radio, Transform Unapologetically. And um, I do this show because I am such a purveyor of transformation. I truly believe that we are all always in some form of transformative energy, and it's better for us to accept that fact, to recognize and become aware of that in our lives, so that it doesn't take us under, that we can really make choices and feel empowered about the transformations that are happening, because the only constant in life is change. It's the whole point, is our, I want to say, ever evolvement in this wild ride called life, in these crazy human bodies. And I am just like everyone, I'm just so excited today because I have a very good friend of mine who has agreed to come on the show today and chat with me and chat with all of us about a topic that, quite frankly, is. I don't want to say it's near and dear to my heart, but it is a very, very important part of the transformational process. And so I would like to introduce you guys to my very good friend Suzie Plakson. Among her many talents, as an artist, an author, a singer, a joyful dancer. She told me to leave that out, but I had to bring it in. A joyful dancer. She is a fellow creator enthusiast. Suzie, I'm just so freaking excited to have you on the show today.
And I am so freaking excited to be on your show, Stacey, the Black Feather Intuitive.
Yay! It's awesome. Susie and I got together, I don't know if it was last month or has it been longer than last month? And we
I
just
think it was
had,
a bit longer, a wee bit longer.
yeah, it feels like yesterday.
It
And,
does.
we just had a fantastic time,
Yes, we did.
gabbing, shooting the shit, talking all things, metaphysical and creative. And I said to her, "Oh my God, why don't you come on my show? We have these incredible conversations. Why don't you come on my show and we'll have one of these incredible conversations where we start on a topic and we, just kind of go down the spiritual rabbit hole of whatever, comes up and comes through." And I'm so grateful that you agreed to join me. And so today, what I decided that I'd like to focus on is talking about the very necessary, often scary chaos phase of the creative process. And I want to say this in my, sort of Phoenix phase system or energy, or, the way I talk about the Phoenix is, this is the Phoenix burning phase. We come to the end of the line with something. We recognize that there's something new and something different, that wants to be birthed through us, but we might not necessarily know what that is. And so things have to burn down to the ground, kind of like the death card, that change is happening, or the tower, that something has to be, sort of eliminated. And you've got to be able to just kind of be free in that space of, okay, I mean, life transitions tend to be rough in these situations because we resist the chaos because we can't control it. It's unpredictable. But I feel like this is the phase where we want to resist less or resist not at all, because this is where the magic happens. What are you thinking about that, Suze?
Well, I'm thinking about 10 chaotic things at once.
Perfect.
So the first thing that comes to mind, and I'd like to actually say it and then dispense with this more customary reaction to the word chaos, which, when we hear the word chaos, we often hear turmoil and we picture war zones and lawlessness and all of that. So let's push that to the side for the moment, because I think as humans, we've been bred to fear that word. We've been bred to fear. I don't want to say disorder. Let's say non-order, pre-order. Um,
Mm,
and so one of the things, I mean, that I think is so rich when it comes to creativity, particularly, is the notion that the original meanings of chaos come from the Greek, and it means the formless void from which the universe was born.
Mm,
And the deliciousness of that, particularly when people say, where do all your ideas come from, or to any creative. Well, I have tended to say the great unmanifest because it seems it's the nothing that's full of everything. And
mm,
my mind also flies to, I love to listen to NDE, near-death experience stories. And there's a commonality that now and again runs through them where people leave their bodies and go into a blackness. And some people have described it as the blackest blackness. It's absolutely nothing, etc. But they say always that it's complete peace. And and they feel wrapped in endless and eternal love. One woman called it black velvet blackness. So somehow or
mm,
another, even though we're sort of all made of light, aiming towards light, we also have this deep primordial blackness within us that we've been bred to believe that blackness is frightening and nothing, and yet in fact this blackness is full, completely full, eternally, endlessly full. And it's so ironic that I've tabled it in this moment, but I've been bringing forth a sculpture called Our Lady of the Darkness from which all dreams are born.
I love that. That's delicious.
Thank you. And that title actually partly comes from my allegorical novel, The Return of King Lilian. There's a quote, and all became the darkness from which all dreams are born. And
Mm,
this is not a frightening goddess, but she's very powerful, um, and primordially so. And I just find it really interesting that she could be called, in Greek mythology, she could be called Chaos, and Chaos in Greek mythology gave birth to Gaia, and I think Eros and another. So it's for for all of us creative types, chaos, like the force of creativity, is one of our most ancient um, subatomic DNA fueled legacies or inheritances, rather. And so when that's just the what do I want to say, the macrocosm. And
hmm
also I was thinking about chaos theory, and I can only talk about chaos theory for literally 30 seconds and before I have no idea what I'm talking about. But where I think it's relevant for this is, and for now, is, the very famous butterfly effect.
hmm
Part of chaos theory, the notion that a butterfly flapping its wings on one side of the world can create a tornado on the other, and that everything is systemically on this planet, everything is systemically and energetically intertwined. And so I brought this into the microcosm of, well, for all of us creative, what good is it to write it to paint a picture right now in this crazy world? What
mm,
good is it to, I'm right now creating hearts for as gifts for people that I love that I want to thank. What good is that really in any big sense? Well, it can be good in a very small sense and affect we don't know what. So all these little actions, little creations, doesn't matter if they never see the light of day or they never, other than say the person you've made the heart for, say, if in that one particular, instance, but that we don't know what the effect of our creating beauty will be. And if only that it is to focus us and calm us and be more available to be wonderful to our neighbors or to whoever. And though, so chaos has all of these very benign, friendly, and inspirational um, um, emotions to it as well, to me. So that's the macrocosm when you say, what are you thinking about that?
Mm. God, I mean, it's giving a persona to chaos. And I love that you are bringing up the fact that it is, when you were talking about the nothingness that holds everything, it's the pure potential. It's the no
Yes.
thingness. It's the Ace of Wands in the tarot. It's that inspired action that comes from the inspiration of the nothingness to somethingness.
Hmm.
And I love when you're talking about the sort of the macrocosm of things. And it puts me in mind of when you were talking, I was thinking about my A type and how sometimes my A type works for me in a creative sense, and sometimes my A type works against me.
Are you talking
And
about A type personality?
yes, my A
Okay.
type personality, that when I step into something and I'm like, okay, I'm inspired and I want to create this, incredible thing. And I've got this vision in my head. And my ego, which is connected to the A type, right? My ego steps in and says, oh, it's going to be this and it's got to be that. And we've got to do it in this way and we've got to do it in that way. And I think when we're talking about the chaos part of it, the ego gets in and says, well, we got to put structure around this. We got to know how this is going to turn out because otherwise, like, I don't know how to protect you. I don't know how to keep you safe if you're going to strip away everything. If you're starting from nothing, I don't know what that means. I don't know what's going to come up. And I think it's fascinating that you're giving chaos the persona, the rich persona that says we don't have to be afraid of this. We are born of chaos.
Hmm.
Everything is born of chaos. That I love that butterfly effect concept. And I often talk about it in terms of the pebble in the pond. You
Hmm.
throw a tiny little pebble in the pond, and it's going to ripple out throughout the entire pond, and some it's going to be a little more intense, and for others it might be a little less intense. But the point is create for the sake of creating, because that's who we are. And that's what we're here to do, not putting all of these expectations of what purpose is it going to serve. It's understanding, wait a second, it's absolutely going to serve a purpose. I just don't necessarily need to know what purpose it's going to serve in order to begin the act of the creation itself. And
Hmm.
maybe in that process I can calm the ego voice, put aside the A type or the unbalanced part of the A type, and just get the fuck into creating
Hmm.
for the sake of it, and be in the delicious flow of that creation, regardless of the chaos that ensues. And that chaos is necessary. Like, we have to have that chaos, but there's fear, I think, in a lot of ways. And now, like, I'm talking a bit all over the map here and a little esoteric, but like
A
if we're
little
talking
chaotic.
about I'm quite chaotic
We
today.
all are. We both are.
Exactly. And I think what we're talking about today is finding the beauty in the chaos and understanding that that beauty is so necessary, but doesn't have to be scary. It can be fun if we shift our perspective on our why. And
That's it.
not
That's it. Oh, sorry.
no, that's okay. I was just going to say not all of my listeners are A types. So I understand
I'm
that,
not.
but just speaking as a from my own experience, that
Hmm.
gets in my way. It can either motivate me and drive me to complete and to follow through and to excel, but it can also literally cut off the joy of the just the actual process of creation or the getting started on the creating?
Well, when I say we, I mean, I think in this moment I might be referring to myself as a 60-some-year-old American who was not bred to was not really bred to be artistic and was bred to
Mm.
behave well in a class and was bred to make sure that now listen, I still pay my bills on time. I can still show up where I need to be. I can still do, cross T's and dot I's and be very precise. So the welcoming of chaos in the sense that we're talking about it is something that almost needs to be awakened. And as you say, a perspective shift is really key. It's so funny because as I'm making these as I sculpt these hearts, these jeweled hearts that I'm creating at the moment. And I look at my work table, I laugh because if this were a video show, you would say, oh, well, there's a interesting view of chaos. And it's not, say, I have all these paintbrushes and polishes and different finishes and pieces of clay where I'm testing this and testing that. And if anybody would walk in, they would say, how can you concentrate? How can you find anything? And somehow or another, it's just part of, and I will say my creative process when it has to do with, particularly with sculpting. I think it's the most obvious because it's a visual art. I'm not quite as familiar with it, at least not in this moment, as how it would be if I were preparing a character or writing a this or doing or singing, but definitely with the visual. And I'll tell you, it brings me to mind many thousands of years ago, I was I was an actor in a play, and this play was touring the country. And there was this wonderful woman who was one of the assistants who would come and set up my makeup. We would tour generally 2 cities a week, and she would set up my makeup table and it would look so beautiful. And then I would sit down and I would put on my makeup and I would always marvel how at the end, at intermission, I would come back and it would look like a bomb hit it. And and I would think, look at the mess you've made of this beautiful thing that she has laid out. And I would try studiously sometimes to make sure that I kept it neat. But what's interesting to me, and I wasn't sculpting at the time. I didn't have any kind of dialogue with myself as a multimedia artist at the time. So I just kept kind of looking at this and thinking, am I just plain inconsiderate? Am I just, I know I'm not the best housekeeper, but am I that much of a slob? Whatever. And then I look at my sculpting table now at my work table, and they're part and parcel of the same thing. There was something about allowing, and not just allowing the mess, but sort of cozying up to it, which is
Mm.
which is a right brain concept, but you just got it. Where, for instance, in the real tiny little microcosm, yesterday I was looking for a particular jewel. I have this box that says jewels on it, scrawled on it, not neatly, and um, it's now too full, and it's full of, Austrian crystals and Swarovski, this and that, and they're in little baggies. But the more that time goes by, and I am a definite spring cleaner, that's what I religiously do, but I haven't had the time to do it this year. So one of the things I do is organize my art supplies before they go all to hell. And so I'm looking for a very specific jewel that I remember buying for a very specific piece because each heart, each piece has its own mind, its own personality. And I'm rifling through this, and I'm starting to get very frustrated with the fact that I haven't been able to organize things, and it's just really a mess. And and then I just kind of let it go and assumed that if I just keep looking, and sure enough, somewhere at the bottom, because all these odd jewels have now fallen out of the plastic baggies and are all over the bottom of it, and I saw one that wasn't what I was looking for. And I picked it up and I looked at it near the heart and went, oh, there it is. That's it. And I think that this sort of cozying up to chaos, if you will, opens our minds and dissolves boundaries and allows and invites the unpredictable and the mysterious. Because let's face it, the mystical profundity of creating art, creating something from nothing, pulling down something from the unmanifest to the manifest is it's always kind of a team sport, even if you're solo, I find.
Yeah, oh,
Right?
absolutely. That's why it's co-creation, because you're co-creating either with source or your dream team, or you might be co-creating with other people, but you're always co-creating with yourself, the divine masculine and the divine feminine within you. You're always co-creating with your soul. Not to say that your soul is separate of you, but that voice that you hear in your head and that part of you that observes,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's the soul, and then you're co-creating with the heart, or you're co-creating with the mind, or you're co-creating with the expressive part of you. I fully agree with you on that, but that's why it's co-creation. We never really do it by ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And so in that way, um, I mean, chaos can be a partner.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I'm taking notes, girl. How to
Oh, hey,
make how to
chaos a
make
partner.
chaos
Well, you
a
can invite
partner.
chaos to the table. And
Yes.
and it doesn't mean it's so funny. It just keeps coming into my head, so I'm going to say it. I think you're way too young, and you might not have ever heard. There was an old sitcom called Get Smart, which was kind of about a dummy secret agent,
Oh
and
yeah.
the evil empire, the evil whatever agency was called Chaos.
Oh, evil, like the fruits of the
Yes,
devil.
exactly. Exactly. So, and therefore, went right along with the moniker of Chaos Agent. Um, so it's it's if we can divorce ourselves, which is often difficult on a survival level, to from the idea that chaos is terrifying, um, then we can play with the unpredictable, and we can play with the spontaneous more. It doesn't mean, again, it's a balance. You need your, as you say, type A. You need, if you're going to create something, you want to put it out there, you need it out there by April 24th, because April 25th will be too late. Then the left and the right brain, the um, the the chaotic and the, I don't want to say rigid, but structured, need to work together. And so it's balanced, because there will come a time, I walked into my kitchen, which is where my work table is. And and what happens is, and it almost always happens with sculpting, I I tend to it tends to create chaos elsewhere in the
Mm,
apartment. So
hmm.
at a certain point, I must clean things up, order things, because otherwise I then can't remember where I put anything. And
Right.
that then it kind of spills over the banks. Okay, so you kind of have to rope it in or keep it within a certain area. But I really feel that it's part of the the idea of just that word can instill such reflexive fear in
Hmm.
in all of us. And again, it's a survival level. And also, again, it's something that's just been bred into us to be
Yeah.
afraid of the night, to be afraid of the dark, to be afraid of anything that isn't planned.
Yeah.
And
The
I
unknown, the
mean,
mystery of life,
right, right.
the
So
shadow.
the shadow, exactly. So, to me, I think it's part of a creative awakening or an awakening towards the notion that each and every one of us is a creative human being.
Hmm.
And it does not necessarily mean that we are always creating art. We can create a garden, a child, the cure for cancer, whatever. But welcoming in I think they're, well, I'm trying to remember the name of the book. I won't be helpful because I can't remember. I think it's called Higher Creativity, now that I think about it. And one of the things they're talking about breakthroughs in science, in art, and one of the things that is a constant, the whoever's created doing the creating is focused, 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 focused. And then they walk away from the thing and something happens. A dream, a feather falls in their path, gives them an idea. A, all sorts of seemingly random and yet somehow synchronistic event that then informs whatever they've been focused on. But if they had remained completely laser focused on that one thing and never looked to the side, they may not have been open to that. Look at that treasure that they
Hmm.
just find. There was the key. The key came from somewhere else. Again, it's beckoning a co-creation from the mysterious. And the mysterious could be, oh, your friend walks in and says, gee, that jewel at the top of her crown is stealing the such and such from her face. When you say, what does that look like to you?
Hmm.
If you were too rigid against that, you would not get that extra perspective.
Oh, absolutely. You're making me think right now of, God, I don't even know how many years ago it was now, but I was still in North Carolina and I was still married and I was taking a beach trip. And this was me on my intuitive journey, my own personal journey. I was opening myself to channeling and doing all sorts of stuff. And I was just taking a solo retreat beach on Carolina Beach. I loved
Mhm.
it there.
Wow.
And there was this big fucking aha moment for me sitting on the beach because I had, like, 2 weeks prior, I had had this aha inspiration about, I don't even remember what the hell it was I was trying to create, but this inspiration about, oh, I need to create this for my clients. This is this, this service or this book or an idea for a workshop or God knows what it was.
Mhm.
Um, and then I was mad, right? Because I had this inspiration, and then, like, in my true dog with a bone fashion, I'm like on it like a shot, and
Mhm.
my whole body, my whole dream team just was like a wind up doll. It was winding me down. The Energizer Bunny actually lost its flow and its mojo for a while and needed to have the batteries replaced. And I was
Mhm.
so angry about this because I'm like, wait a second, you gave me this incredible inspiration. Why are you not letting me develop it? And then I'm
Mhm.
sitting on the beach and I'm reading this book and I'm learning the channeling. And all of a sudden, I get this second penny drop inspiration connected to the first. And I'm going, oh my God, wow, like this is incredible. And PS and FYI, I'm so grateful that I didn't start with the original idea because I would have had to basically undo everything that I did in order to incorporate this next idea. And
Mhm.
everything, like, just all came in to me in that moment. And I recognized on that intuitive journey, just because I get an inspiration doesn't mean I have to act on it right in that moment. It means that I can be creative in using my imagination to sit in that inspiration and allow it to unfold organically, to allow it to speak to what it wants to become for me, through me, on behalf of me, with me, whatever the case may be. And I've never forgotten that experience. And I feel like what you were just sharing really puts me into that space of we have to get out of our own way, that creation, eh, again, it's a co-creative process. And you're also, not only are you co-creating with the parts of yourself or other people, but you're also co-creating with the creation itself. You're co-creating with chaos itself. And if you allow yourself to sit in the chaos rather than resisting it or trying to put structure around it in your own way, and you allow chaos to guide you on how it wants to be structured or needs to be structured, that is where the magic is happening in the overarching transformation of you, whether it's creating something artistic, or creating a good meal, creating an environment for your family to feel safe in, creating something at work, creating whatever it is. I wow, like that, just you saying that just really let everything go ting.
The other thing, I have two things to say. One is that, and this is just for me, it's my perspective, these days anyway, of how things, quote, come through or come from the unmanifest to the manifest. I just feel like I'm a gardener, and I'll get these seeds of, maybe it'll be a song, maybe it'll be a story, maybe it'll be a sculpture. And if I just keep paying attention, if you want to carry the metaphor further, watering them, giving them a little sunshine, taking some notes about this, writing some lyrics about that, they grow in their own time, and they all have, even these hearts that I make, they all have a personality, a timeline, which is the most frustrating, of their own. Because I'm like, really? Really? I need to be done with this now. And
Right.
they don't care.
No, they don't. That
But
was the other
sometimes,
piece of that I learned being on the beach, was like, okay, you've given me this idea and I want to create it. Then you give me this other idea. So now I'm really, like I'm all in, and then you're holding me back. And it's like, wait a second, but why would you give me the all of this juiciness if I'm not supposed to manifest it? And it's because I'm putting my own egoic structure on it and not in the co-creative process. I'm taking charge. I'm being the boss. I'm micromanaging.
right. And also, it's because it's the way that it is customary to get things done. We must move
Yeah.
forward in a Roman road. And that's actually not so much the way the creative process works. However, when it comes to, you know, say I said, Stacey, Random House wants to do a book. We need a book proposal by whatever date. You're going to get that done.
Hmm.
It may, you're going to get that done by the date it needs to be done. So there's the balance. And sometimes I think, um, haven't had this happen in a while, but sometimes I think that whatever personality the art creature, and I'm talking strictly about, when I say art, song, etc., has, it will, if there's a pressure, say, to put that comes behind it, like, you didn't do your homework till the night before. And somehow or another, when you focus, it could be ready, and that was the time, and the time is now, and it's ripe. Again, back to the gardening, and the fruit's ripe for the picking. But In terms of also welcoming the, again, I don't like saying disorder. I don't know why. Probably because so much is disordered around here. But um, but remember years ago, I was doing a bit of creativity coaching, and I remember talking to this one guy who wanted to paint, and he was very left-brained. And he said, I've got all my paints lined up in such and such a way, and he was super precise. And and he said, but then I'm sort of stuck. And what we discovered was that he was really afraid of getting things messed up, not having the painting be bad, but getting things messy.
Hmm.
And I said, I don't think there's one painter, oh, I shouldn't say that, but who isn't covered in paint, whose workspace isn't covered in paint. Now, maybe if you saw pictures of Monet, he was neat as a pin. I don't know. But, put newspaper down on the floor and make sure it's really far, just make it messy. And I said, and if you by mistake pick up a brush that you just used for green and it got some blue on it somehow, and you put it on the paint on the and you put it on the canvas, look look at that mistake, quote unquote, as if it's a portal,
Mm,
some other direction. Maybe it's fuller, richer. So often I will find, and I've only just begun to go with it more easily. If I put a particular finish on something and it's kind of, oh, that's kind of meh. I thought that was going to be wonderful. Instead of going, ah, shit, I ruined it, I go, okay, that's the underlayer. And it's
mm.
there because whatever I put on top of it is now going to be richer because of that.
Right. And
And
energetically, maybe that energy that color or that layer is exuding is important to what the piece wants to become.
correct. Yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. And I think it's probably true. Um, I mean, I find it more I find it more frustrating or let's just say frustrating. I can find it often frustrating to go down the wrong road if I'm writing something. And I realize that the past 3 days that I've been writing X, Y, and Z, that X, Y, and Z is really utterly useless to the story or to whatever I'm doing. Then I find somehow that going down the quote unquote wrong road or taking that detour for just however long, somehow, even if I'm not using it, fed the rest of it.
hmm.
And that's a
Foundationally
tough
in
one.
some way. Yeah.
Yes, it's a tough one. It's a tough one only because, and this is again, to me, I was not raised to enjoy doing the wrong thing. It's a right brain
I don't
statement.
know. Yeah, I don't
You know
know
what I'm
very
saying?
many of us who that
Who
was
have,
allowed we
right?
were allowed to do the wrong thing.
Right. If you're not, no, I didn't say that you should paint that tree purple. That tree should be green. What's wrong with you?
Right.
So I mean, there are countless stories of particularly in yesteryear when I was in school, et cetera, that there wasn't this, yeah, play around with it. Be If you're creating a character as an actor, be stupid, be silly, be ridiculous. Allow that, not just allow it, welcome it, not just welcome it, celebrate it. Because then when you come back to the center point of creation where you're really choosing and selecting and combining and deciding, oh, that will work or that won't work with whatever it is that you're doing. If
Hmm.
you're really rigid about not making a mistake, um, you're not going to know what to do if something, or I shouldn't say you, I should say one doesn't know what to do if something goes wrong. One of the earliest things I ever did sculpting wise that taught me so much. I was making an elf sitting in a tree for a friend, and I put it in the oven. And it was hard. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was never trained to do any of it. So I was just trying and doing whatever. And I put it in the oven. I walked away and I hear this terrifying kind of explosion.
Oh,
And I
yeesh.
go to the oven and I see that it's fallen into like 12 pieces.
Oh.
And as I put it back together, it becomes a kind of, is it, I want to say kintsugi, but it might be
Oh,
kintsugi.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The
Okay.
gold in the
Yes.
ceramic to
Yes.
yes,
The
it's
old
part becomes
Japanese
part of the
thing of
story.
if a cup breaks, they fill the cracks with gold and then it enhances the beauty. What I found
Yes.
when I put that tree back together and put that elf back in the tree was that all of a sudden it had life to it.
Mm,
It
I
was
love
just
that.
it was just a, it was just like a thing before.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
then suddenly it was alive. And I just found that so fascinating that I remember I walked in and I had a very, well, when I say large sculpture, they're never bigger than my oven, but it was a large sculpture. And I loved the face of it. And I walked in, and for whatever reason, it had fallen off the wall and was shattered in, oh my God, it was unsavable. God knows how many pieces.
Mm.
And the only piece, and I couldn't believe that it had survived because it was sort of a fantasy creature. And the nose was thin, 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 and probably 4 or 5 inches long and curved up, like ready to break. But the thing was in perfect condition, just the face. And I walked in, and because of enough experiences of things breaking, I walked in, and at first I was like, oh, and then I went, oh, good, the face is okay. And then I took the face and made a completely different, infinitely better, infinitely more correct, let's say, for that face sculpture. So again, if we dance with chaos or befriend chaos or understand that it's a much older word and doesn't necessarily mean turmoil and tear gas and war zones. It means this infinite well of ideas,
Yeah, it's pure potential. Yeah, yeah.
pure potential. Yep.
And that's where the beauty of I want to say the creative process is because literally anything goes. And you don't have to have the pressure. Like I want to say it's like channeling. I had to get outside of myself. I had to let this idea of what I thought channeling was supposed to be go in order to become the conduit for the energy.
Hmm.
And creativity is exactly the same thing. What was the saying? I think it was the Michelangelo statue that or the statue of David when he was, interviewed
Right. And he
basically about
carved,
it. He
yeah,
said, "I just carved what the stone wanted me to carve. Like I carved, like
and
he was already
released
in
the
the
angel.
stone, and I released the angel." Yes,
Right.
like everything that you're saying just is really connecting a lot of dots for me, like even the kintsugi and everything. I just had a recent experience moving here. I decided that I wanted to kind of get back into pottery and clay making, and because I have these
Oh,
ridiculously long nails, I went and took a pottery wheel class because that was the class that I took all those years ago. And after the first class, realized, oh, you dumbass, you're going to have to cut all your nails off in order to do this. So I just had a thing about it and I was like, I don't think I'm ready to cut these nails off right now. So I just switched over into a hand making, hand building class.
uh-huh.
And I was so frustrated with I loved the class and I was making all of these things and had this huge creative burst and they all looked like shit. And there was this one piece that the instructor used my clay as the sort of example clay to use this one machine. And to be honest with you, I can't remember what the fuck the machine is called, but it creates this long sort of tubular shape, and then from that shape you can like make a vase, or you can make, mugs, and all sorts of things. So he
Mhm.
used this clay. It came out perfectly, and I loved the image. And as we were pulling it from the machine, it collapsed. And he's like, "Don't worry, we can throw it out. We'll mix it into other clay again, and we'll make it again." And I'm like, "Actually, no, I think I'm going to work with the collapsed energy." So here I am making all of these pieces and being very intentional. And then this piece I saved for last. And as I'm creating it, I'm feeling so connected to this piece. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm loving how this is turning out. People were commenting on it. I'm like, this is my pièce de résistance. This is going to be the crowning jewel of this class for me, of this great experiment that is Stacey finding herself again in clay.
Uh-huh.
And I get it completely finished. I move it to the shelf for it to be burned the first time, cooked or whatever it's called the
Cured,
first time,
cured.
burned, cured.
Yeah.
And one of my fellow classmates goes in there and breaks the two of the petals off. And and I cried. I didn't cry just because of that. I cried because I had lost a friend that day. I cried because I got pulled over by the cops that day, and I hadn't been
Oh
pulled
my
over in
God.
20 years, and it was like a traumatic experience. And so like
Aw.
it was a culmination of all of these things. And then this wonderful human being who felt awful about what had happened. It was just an accident. And so then I was like, okay, do I just throw it out? Blah, blah, whatever. Because I was like, okay, what's the lesson in all of this? And the lesson in all of it was I was ignoring all the other things that I was doing. I was judging them, and I was putting all of my hopes and energies and whatever into the perfection of this piece that I was so proud of myself that I was able to bring order to chaos
Mhm.
in the original, smashing of it.
Mhm.
And then it breaks again, and like I almost like lost my shit. And then I realized, wait a second, Kintsugi, this is the story of the piece. This is the journey of Stacey letting go and being fully accepting of chaos, fully accepting of the fact that I had a vision in my head of what this was supposed to be, but I was ignoring the creative component of it. I was ignoring the co-creative component of it. And that piece wanted to be something else. That piece needed to be something else. And I'm going to say
Mhm.
to you today, it is my absolute favorite fucking piece. I mean, I created like 20 different things from that class. They're
Mhm.
all shitty. And I'm not going to say to you that this thing is ready to go into a museum of art and get $20 million for it either. Like in true
But you
fashion, I
have
should
great
probably be
affection
embarrassed
for it.
about it, but I have great affection for it, and I display it proudly, and I
Yeah.
love using it. And it keeps me connected. And I feel like that's because there was the energetic story of me allowing the chaos. Did I have resistance in that chaos? Fuck yeah. That's just who I am.
Mhm.
Smash my head against the wall 57,000 times until I surrender. But that's the issue. And for me, I just hit on the word. Surrender is challenging for me. Surrender is necessary when we go into the creative process, the co-creative process, and the chaotic process, because it is about us being a complete and utter conduit for the energy of creation. It's not about us. It comes
Yeah.
through us.
You know what I love just as a little something towards the end of our talk. I love watching as a comfort show. I'm mad for period pieces, of course, but I love rewatching Project Runway.
Mm,
Not because I am a fashionista, because I am the furthest thing from that, but because I love to watch all the old ones, all the new ones, whatever. I love to watch the creative process of the designers, particularly under pressure. They have a day to do this. You have $100 to buy the whatever it is, to buy the material, and you've got to make a such and such costume by midnight tonight. You have 2 hours to finish it tomorrow morning. Now, obviously, there's a certain level of expertise that takes, but I find it fascinating, particularly for, I don't know how familiar you or your audience are with Project Runway, but they have every season something called the Unconventional Materials Challenge. So they have to make clothes out of candy or out of car parts or whatever, and they never know when it's going to happen, and they send them to do it. And what happens is almost always the people who hate the idea, ugh, this is the unconventional child. I only work with wonderful materials. I mean, I don't work with crap. And then other people just go, oh my God, I love this. I love this. This is so, and other people are scared to death, but they go with it.
Hmm.
And they don't judge it every step of the way and say, this this is a washer for a car. What the hell am I doing with, ugh, this is terrible. Ugh, ugh, ugh. And it's just fascinating to me to find out uh, where they end up. And almost entirely, it is true, particularly in this unconventionals challenge, to see that the people who hated it from the beginning are the ones who are either on the bottom or going home.
Mm,
I find that to be really informational. So that, say, if I can't get out to buy something that I need to create, say, a thank you gift for somebody, and all I've got is what I have, then I have to assume that what I have, somewhere in what I have, is fine, is enough. It's there.
yeah.
I don't know where it is right now. And I have to assume it. Now, it's very easy to say, well, you got to trust. But I think what happens is that we have to, the more, it's like with anything, with any friendship, with anything, the more you a force, the force inside of you, what your creative process looks like, what your dance with chaos looks like, the more familiar I become with it, the easier it is to go, oh, it's fine. And I don't need it then. Then, okay, great. And it becomes part of the mystery, as it were, of creating
Yes.
whatever the thing is.
And like necessity is the mother of invention,
Hmm.
right? Like if you have all of the ingredients, it's almost predictable what you're gonna create. But if you don't have all of the ingredients, now it's unpredictable. The chaos comes into the mix, and then you end up with something that's really freaking amazing that you wouldn't normally have otherwise had. You know,
Yeah.
it's making me think of, and I know we just have a few minutes left here. But just to sort of wrap up here, it makes me think of this amazing, amazing theatrical production that I love to go and see. I've discovered it here in since I've been here in Phoenix, in Arizona. They don't do it everywhere. They do it in a handful of cities, but I'm lucky enough that Phoenix is one of them, and it's called Drunk Shakespeare. And basically, the premise of it is you have an abridged version of a Shakespeare play. You've got five thespians, right? Five actors. One of those actors is starts the show off by taking four shots of whatever alcohol they've chosen, and then throughout the show, the people get to determine whether or not they have to drink more shots, kind of thing, and you get up to six shots. And the other four actors basically have to do the bidding, and throughout this, the person gets drunker and drunker. And the thing that I love the most about it is, yes, chaos ensues, but the drunkard, the one that has to drink the alcohol, has the ability at any given time, for any particular reason at all throughout the performance, to call point of order and shift something up so that the other actors who are just trying to keep their shit together because this person's drunk now has to, there's a something, a wrench that's been thrown into the works, and they've got to figure it out. And I was just at one last month and they were doing kind of an abridged version of Romeo and Juliet. And they come out and they're talking about the swords. I bite my thumb at you and your sword, sir, and all these things. Well, the actor puts her hand up, point of order, point of order. And she decides we're not going to do anything with these swords. And she pulls out this box of dildos. And I have to tell you, I peed my pants for the entire show because even if nothing else went sort of normal or right, or they screwed up their lines, which by the way, they never did. The fact that every time they come out to have a fight, they bring these swords out, they're fighting with these dildos and they're like bright rainbow colors and this purple and this neon pink and like I love it because when I think about why do I keep going back to drunk Shakespeare, I keep going back to drunk Shakespeare because there's such fucking joy in the chaos that
Uh-huh.
ensues.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like that's a great, I mean, it's kind of a dirty story to end on, but that's just me. That's my sense of humor. So
Yeah,
hopefully I
but
haven't
no,
offended
but
anybody.
I totally get what you're saying. Of course.
Yeah. And I
Because
think
they're embracing spontaneity and ridiculousness and foolishness and vulgarity, anything. Just and it becomes fun. See,
it's
that's the other
delightful.
thing. Chaos is also in many cases where the fun hides out. So
Yeah, I love it. So, girl, we have talked away our full hour. Tell everybody where they can find you. Where can they find you to check out your fabulous hearts? Where can they find you
oh,
for your artistic stuff?
they can go to my website, SuziePlakson.com, SuziePlakson. I'm on Facebook, Suzie Plakson official page, but I haven't been there in a while. A little bit on Instagram, haven't been there in a while. So mostly it's my website, SuziePlakson.com.
Awesome. You guys should really check it out. And you should also check out her book, King Lillian, The Adventures of King Lillian. It's fantastic. If you're fantastical in any sort of way, if you're inspirational or imaginative in any way, you're really going to enjoy the story. It's fantastic. And of course, I'm Stacey, the Black Feather Intuitive. Check me out on my YouTube channel. I am releasing all sorts of content. Really excited to be doing that. I do astrology, sort of astrology readings, monthly astrology readings. I have my day drinking and tarot. I have my Black Feather Couture, Divining a VIP Life series, all sorts of readings and information. And just check it out. And feel free to book a session with me if you are, wanting to explore a little more chaos. I'm your girl. Thank you so much, Susie. It was great to
Thanks.
connect with you. I hope to have you on the show again.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a blast.
All right. See you later, girl. Love you.
Okay, love you too.
Bye.
Bye.